Soldier Town, they called me Yahi. At school, I was Mustapha Njie. At work, just Mustapha. In business, and everybody knows me for this now, it's TAF. To my dear wife Jatu, she called me Njie. My children, they call me Daddy. My grandkids, they call me Grandpa. But the name that I held deepest for came from my mother, Yahya, and she called me Sumamodu Mustapha. Yes, I've been someone of many names, a man of many stories, shaped by journeys across the globe. For years, people told me, you must write a book. But I chose something even better. This documentary, a chance to walk you through the laughter, the struggles, the lessons, and the love that made me who I am today. To everyone who walked this path with me, I say a very big thank you. Words will never be enough. Now sit back, relax, and let's take this journey together. And welcome to Walk with TAF.
Good afternoon, beautiful listeners. Welcome to Afri Radio. You're listening to the Let's Talk Show live on 107.6 FM. My name is Mariam Makuli, and it's another beautiful afternoon here in the studio. I hope you're all having a wonderful Friday and getting ready to have a wonderful weekend. Today on the mentorship program, I'm really excited and happy to have a very important guest with me in the studio, Mr. Mustapha Njie. Welcome on the Let's Talk Show, Mr. Mustapha Njie. Thank you so much. I know you're one of the busiest men in this country.
Thank you for hosting me.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure and honor to be here.
Thank you so
Mustapha
much.
Njie, or simply TAF as he is known, is not your typical African retiree. He's on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and he even has his own YouTube channel. And he posts regularly across all these platforms. So let's walk with him to see how he became a real estate luminary, an influential leader, and a true success story of African entrepreneurialism. This is the Gambia, Africa's smallest non-island country. You may have heard of Kunta Kinte, or maybe you've recently read about the Smiling Coast with its wonderful beaches. But let's go back a few years. Aside from its 50-mile coastline on the Atlantic Ocean, the Gambia is today surrounded entirely by the Republic of Senegal, the result of a 19th century agreement between the colonial powers Great Britain and France. And when the Gambia took its independence from Great Britain on the 18th of February 1965, Mustapha Njie had just turned 8 and was living in the capital Banjul, which at the time was called Bathurst. Mustapha's mother was a street food vendor, and his father was a civil servant. And together they raised their family of 11 children in a 2-bedroom house based on a strong Muslim faith and a deep commitment to family values.
Wow. I went to this class, this was 4B. 4B. I started doing woodwork, which today my career is about this. So it all started here.
When Mustapha graduated from Gambia High School in 1975, he hoped to travel abroad to further his studies, like so many of his classmates. But his father just didn't have the money to allow Mustapha to fulfill his dream.
My father passed away in 1979. I was only, 22 years old.
Our dad, for us, has always been a very loving father. He took care of us in ways which I think were exceptional. in that day and age. My mom used to go and sell sandwiches in the mornings, and my dad would make sure that we all had breakfast, we all were properly dressed, and we had a special bond with him. And in a way, his dying was very much a shock, because I think we were all transitioning.
Now, if the father is no longer around, somebody has to step in. And he stepped in.
For my brother too, that came in as quite a change, because then he also now had to assume responsibilities as the male head of the family.
He took up all the challenges. He was very strong, mentally, physically, and he had a direction.
Amazing. So you started work at a very early age.
At 18, and I have never,
Wow.
never stopped working till now. I'm trying to
Obviously.
stop, but it's difficult.
He's retired, guys, but he's still working. I want to be like you when I grow up. Be, retire and still working.
And so he decided to start his working career, first as a teacher at his alma mater Gambia High School, where he taught carpentry. By the age of 20, TAF was working for a British construction company, Balfour Beatty.
They were looking for a young, educated Gambian who will assist the engineers. I was doing surveying, I was a draftsman, I will draw things out, I would do supervision.
It was good to find himself in that situation where he can develop himself, had the opportunity to be in a construction site as big as that.
There we worked something like 12 hours a day. And I had over probably 32 or so British, expatriates who I worked with. And I was then promoted as a site engineer. So everything they did, mainly in construction, I was there to double check. I was just telling him that, look, you need to make sure that everything is straight. Okay. And then clean the cement, huh? Okay. Yeah. So we woke up in the morning, very ignorant about what was going on. Around the mid-morning, 10 o'clock, two of my friends and I said, well, let's go out there and see what was going on. You were hearing gunshots from far. I just felt a bullet through my thigh. Boom! But I was so lucky, it didn't hit my bone. So I saw the blood was just sprinkling out. And I had to be rushed and then put on an ambulance and to the theater. It was at the very beginning of the event, so I was lucky. So they took the bullet out. If it had hit my bone, definitely my leg would have been amputated. And at the time I show it to the kids, why they should embrace peace and unity. That you haven't witnessed this, so please don't take peace for granted.
And by the time the 1980s rolled around, TAF was already establishing a name for himself in the construction industry. He took part in a number of large-scale construction projects and traveled the length and breadth of the country. As a young man, he was earning a good salary. He was the father of a 2-year-old girl, Saini. He'd started to build his first house, and he'd just met his future wife, Jatu.
I was working for Balfour Beatty, and we were building this big hotel. And my wife was working as the secretary to the personnel manager.
Yeah. It was the hotel where I worked and retired from there.
I knew the time that she would walk into the hotel. I will be at a distance, and with my surveying instrument, I will increase and see her through my lens. I courted her for quite a while, and we dated for almost, I think, 5 years before we got married.
Following his time at Balfour Beatty, he worked briefly for Luis Diaz de Lozada, a Spanish-owned construction company, before joining a local Gambian construction company, Sehu Cisse and Sons, where he soon rose to become the assistant general manager, the second in command behind the MD. Today, as you survey the terrain of modern-day Gambia, TAF's fingerprints seem to be all over its landscape. The many different construction projects that he has been involved in represent his years of apprenticeship, his years of grooming, his university, his learning academy, because all those experiences combined together would later allow him to soar on his own, leading his own team to the heights of the construction industry. In the year 1990, with his business plan in hand and financial help from his uncle, the late Dr. Ibrahim Malik Samba, Mustapha launched his own construction company.
Morning. Morning, morning, Naham. Morning. Naham. That's good. Alhamdulillah. Morning, Naham.
He was now CEO of TAF Construction, and this would eventually become the launching pad for his global vision.
When I started my business, I first was targeting private businesses. So I built like private warehouses, offices, and also residences.
There was a vacuum. There was a need for somebody like Mustapha in the industry at the time.
The first big client is what every entrepreneur dreams of. For TAF, it was Charbel Elhaj, a Gambian of Lebanese origin who needed warehouses built for his family business.
We knew each other, so when I started my business, I went to him looking for support and business and people that he knew, because he was quite influential. He was more or less the biggest businessman in the Gambia.
So I approached him to develop our warehouses on Bond Road. It was a huge project because it was swampy.
And he promised me that as long as you are serious, that you will deliver. I will talk to all my friends, and any job that I have, I will give it to you.
My first big project with Mustapha. It was a success, and I think it was a success for both of us.
After several big contracts, Mustapha started to establish his brand across the Gambia. And with his red TAF billboards emblazoned across every construction site, more and more people began to take notice.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you, boy?
Hey, this guy, he was working for Sehu Sisa and Son. He was working for, he's this guy, you know.
The people would pass, drive by and see this warehouse is coming up. And it was being built by TAF Construction. So it was a good also visibility, good advertisement for Mustapha.
We ended up being partners and became very close, and he's one of my very close brothers, more than business.
The early stages, Mustapha was full of ideas and goals for his future, not only for his future, his family, for the country, and he regarded his for the whole continent.
In 1991, he was selected for a 3-month international entrepreneur program in the United States.
When I came back home after that program, I thought, wow, how can I now implement what I learned from the US? I saw the need to develop houses for Gambians, targeting Gambians who are living in the diaspora. And that is how I also started my building material business.
In the tourism industry, we saw there was a vacuum. We had a hotel together. We went into Senegal together. We went into insurance together.
And in 1992, after only 2 years of running his own business, Mustapha Njie, alias TAF, won the coveted Businessman of the Year title awarded by the Chamber of Commerce of the Gambia.
President Sadauda Kairaba Jawara was there with his cabinet. All the diplomats were there. And I never expected it. It was only 2 years after I started my business. And my uncle was there, with the family. And I was just announced as the Businessman of the Year. My uncle shouted, out of joy. It almost shook the whole hall. So whilst everybody was congratulating me, he came to my office. He said he wanted to see me at 7 o'clock in the morning. And when my uncle said 7 o'clock in the morning, I needed to be there at 6:30. So I was there. He walked in and closed the door, then told me, now you have a challenge. Now that you have been recognized as this age, as the Businessman of the Year, you now need to maintain this. And I will never forget that in my life. And to my uncle, I owe everything. He was there for me.
Mustapha had now become a household name in real estate development, and he started looking beyond the borders of the Gambia. always believing in his capacity to grow and to take on more challenges, he co-founded the West African Network.
His own category, his own generation, his own contemporaries in different fields within the sub-region, Senegal, Mali, Guinea, and they started having exchange programs.
So I started being exposed, seeing things in other countries.
When you meet and interact all the time, exchange ideas, you know, it broadens your mind, and then that is the step towards going corporate.
His company, TAF Construction, started taking on large public works projects.
I competed to get government jobs. I remember I won the contract to build the Women's Bureau, which is in Banjul, during the Jawara regime. And that was one of my biggest jobs that I did. And this was around 1992, 1993.
Then, on July the 22nd, 1994, a military coup overthrew the Jawara regime.
The situation was peace in this country.
While some hoped for a change for the better, it turned out to be the beginning of a dark period for the country. On the surface, it was a calm and bloodless regime change, but in the end, it isolated Gambia politically and economically.
Some were scared that, you know, the military are not the best that will govern. And again, unknown, they were young. So in general, especially for those of us in business, we were very, very worried.
And because of the repressive nature of the new regime, many fled the country. It also became quite clear that this new government intended to remain in power for some time.
I was scared to death. And I think almost every Gambian thought, wow, we are finished. But to my surprise, as far as business is concerned, less than a year later, they wanted to build some schools to prove that they can do better. And what they did was they looked at the Gambian contractors they thought had capacity and could deliver. And I was one of them. And then more jobs came in. I partnered with CSC, a Senegalese company, as a subcontractor. And more jobs came after.
The startup TAF Construction had now become a known and trusted company in and out of the Gambia. The vision TAF had when he started was gradually becoming a reality, developing estates, targeting the Gambian diaspora, merging with other ventures and investing in other African countries.
All of that happening in the Gambia, but you still remain number one, you still remain the best and most trusted as well, which is key in business. What do you think really would make the customers trust you and your business if they want to purchase a property or a land with TAF Africa Global?
Well, trust. I mean, in every relationship, you need to develop a trust. And the trust is developed through honesty. And I do tell the young ones all the time that two things that I think that you need to have, you know, to be successful is one, hard work. You must work hard. I mean, if you don't work hard, there's no way you can win. The second thing is honesty. So I try to be honest in every relationship that I have, in anything I am doing in life. Like, for example, I answer every phone call. I have a client who is disappointed about the quality of work one way or the other. I will pick up the call, I will go to site, I will be on my men to go and fix it. And I apologize. Not everything can go right. And when you go wrong, take responsibility, be accountable to it, and then solve the problem.
In the mid-2000s, Mustapha's name became embroiled in a very public controversy when he was allocated land by the Ministry of Lands for a housing project involving international institutions.
What happened then, really, the minister was accused of, you know, taking bribe from me, plus some other government officials, which is untrue. It wasn't true at all. But I think it was something too big for the president at that time just to swallow. So he stopped it by firing the minister at the time, the permanent secretary, the top directors, without directly saying that I was the cause of it. I think it was a matter of just showing authority of who I am. Why should this project go on without coming through me? I had to consult both at the national and at the international level and engage the president and the government.
These were mostly difficult times. And yes, at times we'd be worried. But you know, his way of looking into this is always, you can never give up. You have to keep on trying.
It took some little bit of time, but it was solved, you know, understanding that, look, this project cannot be stopped because it's for the benefit of the country. Not only that, but also you are showing a good example by empowering your own national. I just decided to pull out of those type of business. And that is why I went into mass housing, where I don't need to really corrupt anybody or bribe anybody to get a job. Actually, one of the things that one needs to do all the time is to be able to be independent. Find some little bit of independence where you can do things without government. I think generally in Africa, we see that corruption is endemic. People see it as a way of life. My opinion about it, that it needs to change, because corruption mainly is done, within government, because that's where the public funds are. And normally you see it around, politicians, and quite a number of politicians are there to enrich themselves. That's what we see. Not everybody, but quite a number of them are not that patriotic to work for the interests of the masses. It will be nice to see, a new breed of politicians and people in government who see the country first, who want to work for the country, who are committed in the country. I would love to see a new breed of leadership. And again, this is both in government and in the private sector. We need to really change the way we think. It's not sustainable, because otherwise, as we are seeing, the crime will just be going up, because the divide between the poor and the rich is just increasing. So I'm not too sure how it will be done. I try to put some little bit of prayers in it, that one day we will see, one or two or three who wants to change the way things are done and rule better, be better leaders.
Mustapha's family is part of the Tijaniya Brotherhood, which traces its roots to the Maghreb. Tijaniya is an order of Islam that places great importance on prayers, culture, and education.
I don't take alcohol, I don't take pork. I follow all the practices as a Muslim, but I'm also very tolerant to the other religions. Being raised in Banjul those days, there was a lot of liberalism. We never saw a divide between Muslims and Christians.
Not blame the government.
Hello?
Talking because you have so you want
Yeah?
Mustapha treasures having weekly routines with his family. He also regularly meets up with his childhood friends in what is called their vous, taken from the French word rendezvous, meaning appointment.
Like whenever it's feasts, we all come together for one day like this. Some of us have held very high responsible positions, like state ministers and express our opinion,
we feel like we're still teenagers. We joke with each other, we laugh. You can see we still bring our attire. But if anything, I mean, my confidence was developed through here.
By the year 2010, the situation in the Gambia had become very difficult.
The government didn't have any good atmosphere for me to practice my business. So yes, at times I really felt threatened, and I was very careful. So when opportunities came to go to Nigeria in 2012 or so, I just grabbed it, and I knew, look, this was the time to leave and, you know, exploit other opportunities.
Don't tell me something like this is not beautiful. My brother, my sister, the revolution is happening. It's time for a borderless Africa. It's time for each and every African out there to know that Africa belongs to Africans. Don't be scared in investing in another African country.
While on a flight to South Africa, a friend of TAF's met a senior Nigerian civil servant who worked in public infrastructure and was looking for a developer to help deliver mass housing in the south of his country. This friend immediately connected the two.
Now, fast track, I invited this gentleman, Chidi, to Gambia to come and see what we were doing. He was happy, he was convinced that I could do it. I went to Nigeria, he introduced me to the governor of Rivers State at the time, and he wanted to do mass housing for public servants and also for the private sector. They provided the land, and I raised the finance. I built everything from scratch, and the rest is history.
Was this a convenient opportunity to go into temporary exile? Or was this an irresistible business opportunity? Mustapha had many reasons to leave the country. He decided to launch a new company, Reef Taft, and set up an office in Port Harcourt, Nigeria.
He wanted to move on, very young. He has his business, he has a legacy, he has his family who work with him.
If you know TAF, you know that he basically will take any risk.
When the opportunity came up from Nigeria, he decided to knock on the door and go and see how he can expand and work in Nigeria and elsewhere.
Nigeria was a big risk, and I guess a big risk that paid off too.
Located in a 40-hectare land area, has led to the creation of a subsidiary company called Reef Taft. A unique element of the Reef Taft project is the almost exclusive use of African contractors to produce world-class results. But that's not all. Mustapha Njie is also taking an unusual approach to recruiting by employing a largely female workforce in administrative positions.
I happen to be one of the few people who first went to visit the project at the time. In 2014, I was very emotional. I didn't want him to see it. I was very emotional because from the airport, he went, took me around to show me everything. He showed me so many things. But to me, I didn't even pay attention. I was so filled, my heart was so filled with joy. You know, look at this guy. You know, I mean, look at all what he went through in his own country. Look at the reception he has and the opportunity he's been given in a different country.
Destiny brought me here.
Hey, you keep on saying
I was
destiny,
destined to be here. But the problem is that, look, there was an opportunity. Because then in Port Harcourt, there was nothing like this. This is where the treasury of Nigeria is. This is where the wealth is. This is where the oil center is. And obviously they need decent accommodation. So I identified the need. There was a need for it. Then I took the risk. Everybody said, oh, it's too risky. Don't come here, you know, kidnapping, everything. But where there's no risk, there's no returns. If they can develop a place like Dubai, where everybody goes into, why can I not do it?
Building skyscrapers.
Again, the other good example is Rwanda. If Rwanda, who went into a war in 1994, you know, can turn around that country to be like the paradise today of Africa, where everybody thinks that, you know, they're doing well, why can't I do it?